James Howlett, Earth, 616. Cursed with a berserker fury, the violent mutant known as Wolverine has a reputation of both as an outstanding superhero and as a lethal killer. Born as James Howlett to a wealthy Canadian family at the end of the 19th century, he was forced to abandon his family after the tragic manifestation of his bestial abilities of accelerated healing factor, keenly enhanced senses and boned claws in each hand. Adopting the name Logan, he wandered the world, living a long life filled with blood, war, and betrayal, having vile Sabretooth as his archenemy, and the Japanese warrior Ogun as his sensei. Unfortunately, by acting as a lone wolf, Logan was an unwitting subject of the Weapon X program and had his bones coated in indestructible adamantium, becoming an even more lethal asset. Rescued and assisted by Mac and Heather Hudson, he joined Department H as a Canadian government operative known as the Wolverine. Later, Logan was invited by Charles Xavier to join the X-Men, a team of heroes fighting for peace between humans and mutants. Proving to be a challenging addition to the X-Men due to his aggressive behavior, Wolverine was constantly in conflict with his fellow teammate Cyclops. However, he has gradually grown fond of the X-Men, considering them to be his new family. As a recurrent member of the X-Men, Wolverine has also become a noteworthy member of the Avengers. Moreover, he has been tasked to run the secret mutant strike team known as X-Force to protect mutant-kin's interests by employing lethal force. Wolverine was also responsible for reforming the Jean Grey School after parting ways with Cyclops and leading his own faction of X-Men. When all mutant kind was granted asylum by Professor Xavier on the mutant-exclusive nation of Krakoa, Wolverine was one of the first of its residents. Although currently suspicious of the cost of this apparent safe place for mutants, Wolverine still works as the field leader of X-Force, which evolved as an intelligence organization in charge of special operations to counterattack assaults against Krakoa. A number of the incidents recounted of Wolverine's life are cited to have occurred in specific decades relative to the era of publication. However, the Earth 616 universe operates on a sliding timescale. These events could not have occurred in the times they appeared due to the fact that it would drastically age the character. However, Wolverine is unique in the sense that he was born during the late 19th century and that his powers allow him to age slower than an ordinary human, which means that despite being well over 100 years of age, Wolverine retains the health, appearance, and physical vitality of a man in the physical prime of his life. Wolverine's early history from his birth to his escape from the Weapon X experiment in the 1970s are considered to have happened in real time. As such, the length of time between his escape from the Weapon X compound and his encounter with James and Heather Hudson should be considered relative to the sliding timescale. Childhood. Wolverine's life began in Cold Lake, Alberta, Canada, sometime between 1882 and 1885. The mutant who would come to be known simply as Logan was born James Howlett, the illegitimate son of Elizabeth Howlett, who was married to John Howlett, owner of a large estate, and the Howlett's groundskeeper, Thomas Logan. As a boy, James was notably frail and prone to bouts of allergic attacks. He was largely neglected by his mother, who had been institutionalized for a time following the death of her first son, John Jr., in 1897. James was constantly under the pressure of his grandfather, Mr. Howlett, who believed that James required constant punishment by a strong hand, in order to be raised properly. Firm, but fair, was what Mr. Howlett said to justify his abusive actions. James spent most of his early years on the Howlett estate grounds with two playmates that lived at the estate with him, Rose O'Hara, a red-headed Irish girl who was brought in from town to be a companion to young James, and a boy nicknamed Dog, Thomas Logan's son, and James's half-brother. The children were close friends, but, as they reached adolescence, the abuse inflicted upon Dog warped his mind. Dog made unwanted advances towards Rose, which James reported to his father. In retaliation, Dog killed James' puppy, leading to the expulsion of Thomas and Dog from the estate. Thomas, in a drunken stupor and armed with a shotgun, invaded the Howlett estate with his son and attempted to take his former lover Elizabeth with him. John, Sr. attempted to stop him and Thomas shot him in the head, in cold blood. James had just entered the room when this occurred and his mutation finally manifested. Bone claws extended from the backs of his hands and he attacked the intruders with uncharacteristic ferocity, killing Thomas and scarring Dog's face with 3 claw marks. Already an emotionally disturbed woman since the death of her first son, Elizabeth, completely unhinged, drove James away and took her life immediately afterward with a blast from Thomas's gun. Rose fled the estate with James in tow, hiding in a shed. James experienced his heightened senses for the first time, telling Rose that he could smell apple dumplings. Dog falsely reported to the police and James' grandfather that Rose had murdered John, Sr. and Thomas. Rose led James to his grandfather's house, but Mr. Howlett simply ordered them to flee by train, with cold, cruel eyes, but still used his influence in town to help the pair escape, due to blood ties. Rose then fled the estate with James, who appeared to have been deeply traumatized, and his healing factor had somehow driven the trauma from his memories, leaving him partially amnesiac. Personality. Wolverine is a gruff loner who had a strong sense of personal honor. He also had a wild, animal-like nature to him and a savage, or berserker, rage which he tried to control. He is also perfectly at home in the wilderness. He is known as one of the most fearless, brave, and dangerous men in the world, stated by Steve Rogers. Wolverine had established himself quickly as the X-Man most willing to permanently deal with their adversaries. He developed close friendships with his teammates Nightcrawler, whose personality diametrically opposed Wolverine's, and Colossus, who often performed the fastball special with him. He was something of a father figure to Natasha Romanoff, Shadowcat, Rogue, X-23, and Jubilee. He loved many women, including Rose, Itsu, Viper, Silver Fox, Phoenix, and Mariko. There are only a few people that Wolverine truly trusted, which are Captain America, Steve Rogers, Nick Fury, Jean Grey, and Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Attributes. Powers. Mutant physiology. Logan is a mutant who had been given an adamantium skeleton by the Weapon X program. Nick Fury's intel classified him as power level 9, while the O** and *E classified him as a severe threat. Regenerative healing factor. Wolverine's body naturally regenerates most, if not all, damaged or destroyed tissues and organs at a rate which exceeds that of any normal human. The rate of regeneration is proportional to the damage caused. This process is automatic, and Wolverine seems to have no control over it. His healing factor, however, does not seem to stop Wolverine from feeling the pain of his wounds nor the pain of his body regenerating itself. The speed at which he heals has fluctuated considerably in recent years. After first losing his adamantium, Wolverine's healing factor recovered and increased to a level far above his previous norm. However, it was significantly reduced after his last encounter with Laser, the Angel of Death. Its current effectiveness, after losing the healing factor, dying, and being resurrected with it intact, has not yet been compared to past values. Contaminant immunity. Wolverine's natural healing also affords him virtual immunity to poisons, viruses, diseases, and most drugs. For example, it is extremely difficult for him to become intoxicated from alcohol. It can be accomplished with extraordinary amounts of alcohol, and even then, the entire cycle of intoxication and hangover can be completed in mere minutes. Wolverine's healing factor has cured him of the mystical curse of lycanthropy after he had been bitten and turned into a werewolf, and from vampirism, though it should be noted that the time it took to cure the werewolf curse was longer than the time it took to cure him of vampirism. When he was infected with vampirism, he had also been infected with nanites to temporarily deactivate his healing factor and use him as a booby trap on the vampires. Fatigue resistance. Wolverine is partially resistant to fatigue poisons produced from physical activity. Decelerated aging. In addition, Wolverine's healing factor provides him with an extended lifespan by slowing the effects of the aging process. Wolverine was born sometime during the late 19th century. Although well over 100 years of age, Wolverine retains the health, appearance, and physical vitality of a man in the physical prime of his life. Telepathic resistance. Wolverine has stated to Emma Frost that he is resistant to telepathic probing, from both level 9 psi shields implanted by Professor Charles Xavier and his healing factor creating mental scar tissue, blocking it, although he is not completely immune to telepathy as he does appear to be vulnerable to extremely powerful telepaths such as Quentin Quire. Retractable bone claws. Wolverine's skeleton includes 6 retractable foot-long bone claws, 3 in each arm, that are housed beneath the skin and muscle of his forearms. Wolverine could, at will, release these slightly curved claws through his skin between the knuckles on each hand. The bone claws are naturally sharp and tougher than normal human bone. Even before they were infused with adamantium, they could penetrate most flesh and many natural materials. After augmentation, his bones became indestructible and his claws are capable of piercing any material, relative to its thickness and the force Wolverine can exert. The adamantium bonding process which affected his bones effectively transformed them into a new alloy called adamantium beta, which, combined with his healing factor, prevents his adamantium skeleton from interfering with his bone marrow's production of blood cells. Wolverine can unsheath any number of his claws at once, although he needs to keep his wrists straight at the moment his claws pass from his forearms into his hands. When unsheathed, the claws are entirely within his forearms, allowing him to bend his wrists when they are extended. Hot claws, a new facet of his adamantium-tipped claws upon his resurrection is to cause them to heat up several thousand degrees in seconds. A trait which is seemingly tied to Wolverine's berserker rage. How hot they can get remains a mystery, but they can reach high enough temperatures to cause gasoline to ignite on contact with it. Superhumanly acute senses. Wolverine's superhuman senses are a combination of a separate mutant ability and his healing factor, since his sense organs atrophy at a much slower rate than normal humans. His most improved senses are sight, hearing, and smell. Due to these enhanced senses, Wolverine has claimed he can function in complete darkness as though it were daylight. Superhuman hearing. Wolverine is capable of hearing sounds from a far greater distance than any human, and is said to be less developed than Daredevil. Superhuman sight. Wolverine's sight is improved, allowing him to see further than a normal human. Superhuman smell. Wolverine's sense of smell is even more magnified and allows him to recognize and track objects and people just by smell alone. Daredevil once posited that Wolverine's sense of smell is slightly more developed than his. Superhuman taste. Wolverine can distinguish individual ingredients in food or drink he consumes at a smaller part per volume than a normal person. Superhuman touch. Wolverine's sense of touch gives him greater sensitivity to air direction and temperature differentials in his environment. He is able to sense Cyclops' incoming power beam based on the shift in air pressure that precedes its arrival. Superhuman strength. Wolverine's reinforced skeleton allows him to withstand high levels of physical pressure. His strength is also boosted to enhanced levels, allowing him to lift more than 800 pounds but no more than 2 tons. Superhuman speed. Wolverine is able to move at low-level superhuman speeds. He has attacked faster than the eye could follow, and even Spider-Man briefly thought Wolverine was faster than he was in their first fight. His combat speed seems more enhanced than anything else, as he has frequently kept up with Spider-Man in combat, and blitzed people before they pull their trigger fingers. Superhuman stamina. Wolverine's healing factor grants him superhuman stamina and is partially immune to fatigue toxins generated by physical exertion, and thus has greater endurance than actual humans. His stamina has been described as metahuman, indicating the ability to continually exert himself for several days at peak efficiency. Superhuman durability. Wolverine has superhuman durability due to a combination of his healing factor and adamantium skeleton. Enhanced reflexes and agility. Wolverine's reflexes and agility are enhanced beyond the capabilities of the normal human body. On several occasions, he was able to dodge Cyclops' optic blasts with ease, although this is partly due to his enhanced senses. Animal empathy. Wolverine has been seen to be able to understand the emotions of animals around them and communicate with them on a very basic level. Wolverine has been seen to be able to show animals his intentions and actions so he would not be perceived as a threat to them. Abilities. Skilled tracker. Due to his superhuman sense, Wolverine is considered to be one of the world's most skilled trackers. Above normal intelligence. Wolverine has an above normal level of intelligence. Expert leader. He also ran the secret mutant strike team known as X-Force to ensure mutant-kin's survival by employing lethal force. Wolverine stepped in once again as the field leader of X-Force, an intelligence organization in charge of special operations to counterattack assaults against Krakoa. Master martial artist. Wolverine has mastered virtually every form of hand-to-hand combat on Earth. Due to his age and experience, Wolverine has taught many heroes some form for fighting. These include the Black Widow, Rogue, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Primal, Sunspot, Armor, Jubilee, Rachel Summers, Phoebe Cuckoo, and Shadowcat in hand-to-hand combat. Weapons expert. Wolverine is a trained expert with many guns, blades, explosives and other weaponry due to his experiences as a solider, samurai, spy and mercenary. Computer and vehicles expert. Wolverine is trained in the use of several computer systems and vehicle repair as well as being an accomplished pilot. Expert assassin. Wolverine has knowledge of several assassination techniques. Multilingual, a polyglot, Wolverine is fluent in many languages including English, Japanese, Russian, Mandarin, Cheyenne, Lakota, Spanish, and Krakoan. Logan also has some knowledge of Farsi, French, German, Korean, Thai, and Vietnamese. Notably, he is also one of the few individuals who has demonstrated the ability to understand Duk-speak. Weaknesses. Memory issues. Likely due to his healing factor, Wolverine has experienced large periods of life without memories of certain traumatic events. Sensory overload. One of Wolverine's weaknesses is the fact that his heightened senses could be taken advantage of. For instance, when Wolverine was fighting the Hulk, Bruce Banner, he was nearly killed by the Hulk's thunderclaps due to his heightened sense of hearing. Adamantium allotropes. The adamantium has 13 different allotropes, variants, that are very unstable compared to adamantium because of their different molecular configurations and thus physical properties. For example, adamantium 9 caused Wolverine to become dizzy and weak just by being in close contact with it. Hot Claws. The new addition to his abilities comes with the drawback of weakening his regenerative ability the longer he has them active, having gone full-tilt berserker during a skirmish with the X-Men, leaving him drained of stamina as they absorb energy from his healing factor in order to work. Drowning. Of the few ways to kill Wolverine, given drowning cuts the brain's oxygen supply. He has admitted that being kept underwater can kill him, with the healing factor only prolonging the agony. Wolverine added that he is not fond of being on water, as the addition of nearly 100 pounds of adamantium to his body reduced his buoyancy. Muramesa Blade, Wolverine's only specific vulnerability known to date. Created by having his soul infused into the katana, the efficiency of his mutant healing factor is decreased dramatically if he sustains injury from the Muramesa Blade. Wolverine has been wounded once with the blade and, though the injury was very minor, it did not heal completely for 2 days. Later the blade was broken and a piece of it was stolen by Dakin and laced to the underside of his 2 wrists bone claws, similar to his father's bonding process, by Phineas Mason, Tinkerer. Logan later removed the pieces of the Muramesa blade from Dakin's arms and buried them with the rest of the blade in an unmarked grave near the Howlett estate in Alberta. After Logan's death, Laura Kinney and Carol Danvers were tricked into revealing the location of the blade and its fragments to the Orphans of X, who melted it down and forged it into several bullets. With the onset of X of Swords, however, 2 all-new Muramesa blades were made by the late swordsmith in the depths of hell. It was made evident that the mystic incisor can cut through adamantium as stated by Logan himself. Paraphernalia. Equipment. Usually Logan wore a standard X-Men uniform or street clothes. His gloves often had grooves in the forearm so they did not tear when he unsheathed his claws. Adamantium. Not part of his natural mutant attributes, Wolverine's entire skeleton, including his bone claws, were laced with the rare, artificial, and virtually indestructible metal alloy known as adamantium, or true adamantium. As a result, Wolverine's bones are virtually unbreakable. The presence of the adamantium has further enhanced the already razor-sharp edge of Wolverine's bone claws. Aside from being practically indestructible, the claws are capable of cutting through any solid material, with the known exception of proto-adamantium, Captain America's shield. However, Wolverine's ability to slice completely through a substance depends upon the thickness of the substance and the amount of force he can exert. The adamantium also weighted his blows, dramatically increasing the effectiveness of his punches and kicks. His claws is able to damage class 100+ durability foes such as the Thing. His adamantium claws has been shown to easily penetrate Thanos' chest. Adamantium beta. Adamantium beta is a metal that can bond to the human skeleton. The properties of adamantium beta is capable of bonding directly into the structure of skeletal material while not inhibiting the living nature of the bone. The only known occurrence of adamantium beta was during the Weapon X project when it was experimented on Wolverine. During the second part of the procedure, they laced his bones with adamantium, and there was a reaction with his healing factor that bonded the metal with his skeleton. As a result from Dr. Jamie Munoz's research, the adamantium itself can regrow just as Wolverine's natural bones can. Weapons. Throughout his life, Wolverine has used a variety of bladed weapons, most frequently daggers and, at times, swords. As a samurai, he was especially skilled with the katana. He has also wielded many different types of firearms throughout his careers as a soldier, a mercenary, and a spy. While he was highly skilled with firearms and because of his perfect eyesight it is very difficult for him miss when firing a gun, he has stated on multiple occasions that he isn't fond of them and prefers to use bladed weapons. Despite this, Wolverine used guns frequently after he lost his healing factor. New Muramesa. After seeking out the ancient swordsmith whom created his prior blade, Wolverine now wields an all-new enchanted katana to participate in the battle for Krakoa. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.